Welcome to the Decentralized Mind podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuela, and today I have with me Dr. Melissa Sunners. And I just finished, well, almost reading her book, The Connection Code, which I would love to dig into a little bit in this conversation. And maybe before we get there, because I wrote a couple notes when I was reading it, you can share a little bit about what got you here to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a chiropractor for 2 decades, which is like mind boggling because I feel like I'm 26. I'm like, the math isn't mathing. However, in that time, I have focused mainly on mamas and high achieving women, right? Definitely work with some men too, but mostly the women. And what I've noticed in that time, well, really focusing on helping these women regulate their nervous system, live in alignment, feel their best, function optimally, is that there's a gap that's missing when we're addressing and how we're addressing burnout, cognitive fatigue, brain fog in women. And it's not that these women are lacking tools or information, we're literally inundated with it, but that we're lacking space to integrate it. We're doing too much and it's not working and it's burning us out even more. And so self-care needs a rebrand. And I've spent the last really 20 years diving into these concepts. And then the last 10 using them on myself. I short version of the story. I got really sick 10 years ago. And at the time, our kids were about 6, 4, and 1, 2 boys and a little girl. I got a double stack of Lyme disease and mold toxicity, which manifested as meningitis and encephalitis. And so basically at, my early 30s, I presented like I had dementia and I struggled to even know my kids' names or how to get to the office. Looked fine on the outside, told very few people how much I was struggling and just kept on keeping on. But what I realized in that experience is that I needed a new way to actually take care of myself, right? There's like the traditional self-care model that we all think about when we think about self-care, these 60-minute appointments, lovely, love them. However, what I actually needed was a tool that worked in the moments where I was the most like spun out. So whether that was feeling like I had high cortisol or, overwhelmed or everything's feeling urgent, but I'm in the middle of my day, juggling patients or, whatever career we're juggling in the middle of the day, or our children, or in the afternoon when I was doing like homework with them and cooking dinner. I couldn't escape and go get in my sauna for an hour. I needed nervous system regulation tools that worked then. And so the last 10 years, I've been asking the question, can we do that in the micro moments? And the answer is definitely hell yes, we can. And these tools are so powerful, so simple. And so I decided to work with Hay House and write a book on them. And so the goal with that book and everything that I do with women is to help them come back to what actually feels good. Like a lot of us are drawn to these tools that actually help us downshift in real time. We've just forgotten how intuitive we are. And so we second guess those things that feel good, that are quick hits of dopamine, like real dopamine that actually move the needle. And tend to push through our day rather than taking the true brain breaks that we're desiring.
Yeah. You know what I found really interesting when I was reading your book, and I think personally really key to this is that oftentimes the ego is positioned as the not just the bad guy, but like having no upside. And like in order for you to achieve this optimal self from a spiritual or nervous system standpoint, you have to destroy pride.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I love the fact that you did none of those things and
The
yet
complete
address
opposite.
the interplay of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, so Hay House, uh, I basically was invited in by Hay House to write this book with them as my publisher, and I was like, okay, you guys, but I have some really strong feelings about the ego, and a lot of the spiritual teachings I've read are power over and get beyond, and I want to do the complete opposite, especially for the women. And they were like, bring it on. And so I really love this concept of amigo the ego, right? Befriend your ego. And we had a little bit of a conversation around this in the masterclass that I did last week with a bunch of women. It was so much fun. And, you think about our ego is our inner narrator. It's that voice playing in the background at any given moment. And anyone who's listening right now and they're like, well, I don't have that. That's your ego. That's the inner narrator. And so if our inner narrator, our ego is present all the time and we're pushing it down and we're powering over, that's such a masculine way to, to like throw shade at something that's such a massive aspect of who we are. And so part of what I was doing in my recovery and getting better was like exploring, what if I just meet it where it's at? Like, what if I listen to what this voice is saying? What if I get beyond, you know, trying to be distracted out of it and, do anything I can to not hear the shit it wants to tell me. And what I found on the other side of that is like, that is the portal to getting to the life that we desire. There's so many women, especially, middle-aged women, whatever, 30, 50, 60-year-olds, that we're looking around and we're like, who designed this life that I'm living? Like, whose idea was this? This is maybe looks good on paper. I'm checking all the boxes, but am I truly fulfilled? And so amigo your ego and like creating that partnership with that inner voice is really how we get back to the place of what we want. Having that conversation and sitting and listening was how I got back to gymnastics at the age of 42 a couple of years ago. It's how I uprooted our entire family and moved to a tropical location that made no sense to anyone, but was a desire that I had underneath all that stuff. And so, I think we've been so programmed to push through this voice that has so much beauty underneath it. And so in that chapter, partnering with your ego, I give this example with my daughter and how we walked through something, and it's really, really simple. And what I find in a lot of the women that I work with for coaching and in my communities, there's a fear. One of the hardest things for a lot of women that I work with to do is to sit and not be busy and not be productive. And there's usually two aspects of that. One, our worth is tied to our productivity. So there's like an unwinding of that. And some of that comes from our parents and what we've learned. And that's our hardwiring and that's our nervous system. So there's like an untethering that we work through in there. And it's actually quite simple. And then the other one is fear of hearing, what your inner voice sounds like, because it's not always beautiful. And there can be some stuff that's not so fun to navigate. But again, it can be really simple when we can understand that, just like maybe a toddler or a child when they're having a hard moment or a meltdown, we don't need to try to fix it. We just need to provide space to be with them. Or like a girlfriend who's like, I don't want you to solve this. I just need to like meet up and vent with someone. I just need a verbal process. I don't know. I'm big. Me and my girlfriend send audio voice notes all the time. Like, I don't want this fixed, so I'm not talking to my husband about it. I just need to off gas. That's what our amigo needs. That's it. She's just been stuffed for so long. She's got some stuff to say. And once you sit through that, you get to the gold underneath.
And I think it's also interesting, how you mentioned, you say the true self, right?
The true
And
self. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because I don't know if you've read or you're familiar with Linda Kohanov, but she says that a lot. When I was probably a teenager, I read all of her books, and she talks about the false. She calls that big sister ego, the false self, and then that the true self is exactly how you define it. It's the same thing, but I think that's so important because I think that sometimes when we're worried about not just overpowering our ego and being like shut up, but also thinking that it's bad, we lose the true self in the process.
100%. It's when we're only showing up to the world with our light, or, any women who are into like cycle syncing will get this. Like when we only think that we're enough or that we're good enough when we come to the world with ovulation energy, but not when we're luteal phase. Like when we're just about to get our period and we feel different and we can feel like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I feel like being out there? Why don't I have the energy to do these things? Like, that is some of our most powerful energy as women. That is our intuition. That is when we need theta the most. We can get into brainwaves. That is some of our strongest aspects of us. But because we've put so much worth in our light and not our shadows, and in our outward energy and not our inner clarity, like we miss out on some of the most beautiful aspects of us. So the goal with the book is really to reconnect women back to that. It's not about adding something new. It's teaching you what's been here all along. So it's ultimately more of a subtraction than an addition. This is falling into, it's a remembering in a world that I don't know, like, I feel like every time I turn around, there's some other protocol that I'm supposed to be measuring or figuring out between my protein macros that my trainer wants me to be measuring and what hormone is doing what and what's my sleep data. I'm like, can I just like assess how I feel and maybe go back to that?
Yeah. Uh, Absolutely. And I do want to bring it to brainwaves a little bit. And because you talk a lot about when you talk about the brainwaves, and in another section later on in the book, you talk a lot about nature and circadian routines and light. And I know that you are familiar with that as well. And that's a lot of, in my personal business, a lot of the stuff that I do. But can you maybe go over the brainwaves a little bit and tie them into those nature rhythms?
Two-parter. Okay, if I forget the second part, just remind me. So, one of the best and easiest ways that we can feel less overwhelmed, less overstimulated, less a sense of urgency in our life is by spending less time in our brainwave beta. And so we've got these magical brainwaves, and I like to think of them like gears in a car. And so just like you wouldn't, wake up in the morning and run right out to your car and instantly get in and push the pedal and go 60, right? You'd turn it on, you'd warm it up. If you have a stick shift, you'd go in gear 1, then 2, then 3. We need to do the same thing to our nervous system. And so we'll talk about the gears, but essentially gear 1 is our warm-up gear. It's theta. And this is one of the most important gears for us women to spend some time in. And so theta is a gear that we wake up in, and you're big on light. I'm sure your audience is like very well educated on light. But as long as we don't do two things, we will stay in theta. As long as we don't put on artificial lighting and go on our screens. And so theta is really important because it is where our intuition shines. It's where we hear our voice in a world that's gotten really noisy. It's where we have the ability to integrate, to process our emotions, to close out some of those tabs. Like, we often feel like we've got 100 tabs open, just like our computers. If there were a lot of tabs, restarting and closing down those tabs helps everything run more efficiently. A lot of people will say, I get my best ideas in the shower. That's because in the shower, you're in theta. And so theta is a really important gear to spend some time in the morning. And this doesn't have to be a 1-hour morning routine. I call them my magical mornings, are often 20 minutes. And so what's really important is just spending some time in theta before we go into gear 2, which we'll talk about now, and then gear 3 beta, which is like where we live too long. Gear 2 is alpha. This is our heart space. This is flow state. This is present time consciousness. If we can spend 5 minutes in alpha, it leads to hours of peak performance later in our day. Alpha feels like post-workout bliss. So like where you can, task switch really efficiently without feeling overwhelmed. Alpha is where we can fully be present with a person in front of us. And all we need to do to spend some time in alpha in our magical mornings is, again, limit or avoid completely, actually, artificial lighting. So like we've got red lights in our home. I'm sure a lot of people that listen to you do as well. And stay off our screens. So 5 minutes in theta usually just looks like sitting, listening. Like the action step is listen to you, not the podcast, not someone else, not your partner. Like this is your time, listen to you. And then the action step for alpha is connect. So for some people, that might mean this is where you start some light body movements just to get your brain, waking up a little bit more. This is a great time for journaling. So what I recommend to the women that I work with is we take the messages that we heard in theta, which could be beautiful, intuitive, powerful hits of information. And they could also be like, I swear, I hope it's okay, like really shitty things that you don't feel like sharing. Like, I don't want to do this day. I'm so annoyed at so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. Like whatever it is, you take that and you write. I call it a call and response practice. So it's like asking yourself questions like, why am I so annoyed at so and so? And pause and wait until you get the answer and you connect to you. You get to know you again. You get to see what is it that I need before I'm asking, what does everyone else need? Because that's often how we show up to every situation and every room we walk in. What do they need? How can I help them? Right? How can I shift me to make their day better? This is about you. And then we go into gear 3 beta. Gear 3 beta is an amazing gear. I don't mean to give it a bad rap, but if we spend too much time in it, we will feel like we have high cortisol. We will feel like our hormones are completely all over the place. We will feel like, and we will have a dysregulated nervous system. Hello. I mean, what is every woman searching in YouTube, right? Like, how do I balance my hormones? How do I regulate my nervous system? How do I lower cortisol? Go in theta, go in alpha. Don't spend too much time in beta. If we are on our screens or surrounded in artificial light, we are in beta. And so beta is meant as like our get stuff done gear. Like she is your heaviest tasks, right? Like hit those focused targets. Action step for gear 3 is put your devices on do not disturb. This is where you do not want to be task switching, meaning like what flusters me the most. I had a lot of this actually today. I've got 3 kids, right? As I mentioned at the beginning is I'm in like high focus task beta mode and I'm getting pings left and right. I had forgotten to put my phone on do not disturb. Like this carpool just got messed up and this person needs this thing. And oh, it's spirit day on Friday. And oh, we're green tomorrow. Like blah, blah, blah. Switching from mom and career mode, you get all frazzled when that happens in beta. So beta, turn your phone on do not disturb, turn your emails on do not disturb. Do your heaviest hitting tasks, and every 90 minutes you want to break, like a true brain break. We will crave this. And so what do? We doom scroll because it's like a brain break. Like, let me just kind of numb out, right? But it's not because you're staying in beta. That's why we never feel better. I'm not judging it. I love a good doom scroll now and then. But what we actually need is a microdose of connection, which we get through alpha and theta. And so just one more thing on that, like how easy that can be. So every 90 minutes, take a 2-minute break and you want to go in alpha and theta. And a great way to do that is to go outside, to get in nature, to do something I call expansive gaze, or like people that follow me online, my lizard walks. I just go for a walk around the corner of my street. I look at the golf course and all the iguanas all over. You want to look out at a horizon. It literally puts your nervous system into parasympathetics. And then we kind of reverse that model on the back end of the day. So, we don't need an hour wind down routine, but we do need to go from gear 3 beta into 2 and 1 to be able to actually hit delta, which is deep sleep. That's where our lymphatic system of our brain, our glyphs, are active. That's where so many of the important physiological processes happen. And so often we're trying to go from beta to delta. We're on our screens and then we're laying down in bed and wondering, what's wrong with us? Is it my hormones? No, it's just that we didn't downshift. So, this information is really empowering because it really simplifies things. It gives you a system to follow. It's a roadmap. It doesn't take hours. It takes minutes. It's free, no protocol required. It's just really understanding how to get in each gear, what works best for you, and then implementing it.
When it comes to, say, theta, I know you mentioned, like, like the hours between wakefulness, like being half asleep to being actually fully awake and vice versa. And you mentioned being able to also bring that back up in other times of the day. And just a random thought of mine when I was listening to you talk about it, do you think that being around running water in nature helps with theta, or would that more be alpha?
I would think that would be theta, yeah, because anything that's just like it's also anything that's a predictable sound, that's like a constant noise, is feels really good on the nervous system. Because a lot of times, subconsciously, our nervous system is asking, "Am I safe here?" And so, nervous system loves predictability and routines. And so something like a white noise or, running water or nature sounds, that's predictive, that's repetitive. That would be theta. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And, tying it in a little bit to the second part of my question, obviously beta, we know tying into nature is, high sun would be like a higher blue, artificial light. And now we know that, all our fun tech stuff basically throws you into beta, whether you like it or not. Um, and then, what would alpha look like
Mhm.
with connecting with those? Would that be like sunrise, sunset? Like, what would you
Yeah,
attribute
sunrise,
to?
sunset would be alpha. So I usually go by, and you might even have more resources on this. Like I go by degrees of where the sun is in the sky. So I tell people when it's like 45 ish, that's when you really want to get out. Um, I use the Lux meter reader from Sarah that we all love. um, get your circadian rhythm going. So like morning walks and evening walks are one of my favorite ways for people to get into alpha. And for mamas too, like that's such a great downshift. So for me, I'll grab my kids shortly after this. We'll go into sports, we'll go into the park, and then we'll usually do another something outside, like evening, sunset, throwing lacrosse, playing catch. It's such a great transition into the evening routine of theta, which is more like, I feel like theta becomes a little bit more cave like a little bit more, I have like a circadian friendly book light that goes on my book to read in bed. Um, Whereas alpha would be more, that good red infrared that we get from sunrise, sunset.
Do you think moms should carve out some time for theta without their kids in the morning?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, ideally, and that's not always practical. So I actually filmed this morning, like I set up my phone camera and I sat for my morning time, and sure enough, my daughter was like right behind me. And so, yeah, in theory, this is about you, but there's a joke in mom world. It's like you open your eyes and your kids hear you and they're right behind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what I have taught them is that, for a few minutes, and at the beginning, I had to use a cue. So I put headphones in. And even if I didn't have anything playing, it was like, Mama's here. You can lay on my lap. You can cuddle. But when my headphones are in, like, I just need a minute and then I'll be with you. So that was my theta time. And so when they were really young, they saw that and they knew. And, there's always times when that didn't work to 100%, but at least I was creating that boundary for myself that I needed that space. I explained to them why, this helps me show up better for you. This helps me have more fun when we're playing together. Alpha connection, right?
Yep.
Connect with loved ones. That's where a lot of times I'll have morning conversations with Jason, my husband. Um, so yeah, ideally, that's a long answer, but ideally your theta time is solo. But I also know the reality. I've got 3 kids. It's not picture perfect.
Yeah, for sure. I have 2 little ones, and when you said that your body stays in theta when you do, like, 2 things at the same time, it's the first thing that came to mind. You said something along those
Okay.
lines, if I
Okay.
remember correctly. Um, but the first thing that I thought of was my kids. I was like, "Ooh, I think I'm always doing more than one thing at the same time."
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
which
don't
is
think that's a good thing either.
well, okay, so tell me more about that, and then let's talk about that because I think that's a thing we all experience as mamas for sure. That's one of our biggest tasks is the ability to cognitive switch because we're constantly doing it, right? I'm over here
Yeah.
doing this thing, and then my kid shows up and needs me, and I need to be present. And that also is like probably top 3 challenges when someone comes in to work with me for coaching. They either say they don't know how to spend time alone, they're not comfortable with it, can't do it, or their child will be speaking to them and they're there, but they don't hear a word that they said because they're still over here. Right. So I think this is really important conversation. So tell me a little bit more about what you mean in that situation. Cause this comes up for me too, but I want to know what you mean.
Yeah, well, my kids are 3, almost 4, and 8, and if I'm waking them up in the morning and they come with me for sunrise because one of them has major sleep issues, so if she doesn't come, I pay the price dearly. So then basically immediately from there, it's like, I need to pee, I need help getting dressed, I need help removing my shirt. It's just a constant something, or even throughout the day, like you said about switching, I think that there's a lot of ineffective switching happening in most moms' lives for a variety of reasons, many of them related to, natural cycles and dopamine and all that. But your kid is talking to you and at the same time you're cooking dinner or
Yeah.
going on a walk, but listening to an audiobook at the same time, maybe not really necessary. You could just do the walk and just
Yeah.
be, but that seems to be very, very hard in general, and I almost feel like I mean, I don't really understand the brainwaves 100% yet, but I almost feel like we're forcing beta in those scenarios. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things going on there. I mean, we've trained our nervous system to multitask because often we have to multitask, right? Like we are living in, not to be dramatic, but unprecedented, how do you say that word?
Precedented, unprecedented, yeah.
Unprecedented times. Like we are juggling so much. And, a lot of it is what they call eustress. It's not distress, it's eustress. Like this is healthy stress, meaning I've got a kid and a family I'm cooking for. Amazing, grateful. I have a job that I'm juggling and trying to pick up my kids. Grateful, amazing. I'm fitting in all these things, like they are healthy stresses. However, it is more than our nervous system can handle. And to our nervous system, it doesn't matter if it's a healthy stress or a distress, like an emergency that happened or, God forbid, a horrible diagnosis. Like to our nervous system, it's the same. It's the same if a tiger's chasing us. And so we have had to multitask in a lot of our lives because we're juggling a lot of balls. And so what happens is even in spaces that we have access to linear focus, a lot of times we don't know how to anymore because what has become familiar is chaos, is high stress, is high cortisol. And so how does that present? That presents as a woman who has a moment to herself and doesn't know what to do with it, doesn't know how to fill it. And so either gets like decision fatigue, like, do I go over here and meal prep? Do I sit and put my feet up? Do I check emails? Do I fold laundry? Well, there goes my minute. Or tries to put her feet up to relax and can't because she's hearing ego tell her all the things she should be doing. Why? Because I need to get it done. Why? Because I can't fail. Why? Right? Like getting to the bottom of all that because we've tied our worth to what we're producing. And so that's one part of it. And then the other part is like the more that we can actually use the tools that are in the connection code, are in the work that I do, one on one and in this group container I'm building out and launching very soon. When we can train our nervous system how to gear shift in any moment, because that's the ultimate goal. Like the morning and evening routine are amazing, but the ultimate goal is to be able to go from whatever task, beta, to completely present with our loved ones. So that at the end of the day or at the end of our time here, we don't look back with regret of the moments missed. So the more that we can train our nervous system through these tools, the easier that becomes. And so, in the scenarios that you shared, which I think are a lot of the ones that we all experience, I'm cooking dinner and helping my child with homework or they need something. It's not like you stop doing all those things because I don't know, there was like that viral reel for so long on Instagram, like stop trying to do everything. And then the mom was like, then who the F is going to do it? Like we have to do these things. But it's the ability to be like, okay, I'm cooking and you're asking me something and to approach it from a grounded presence, the way that we feel after a workout, right? It's alpha, where I can be over here cooking. I can hear my son asking me a question. The food is fine. The water's boiling. I'm ready to put the pasta in or whatever and pivot over here and completely be with my child. They don't need a ton of time. They just need presence and pivot back to this instead of what we usually do because we're in beta. Da 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 da. This is burning. I don't know. I can and then their nervous system mirrors ours. So then they're thrown into that. They need us more to help them regulate. And it's a spiral in the other direction, right? That's when like then someone spills a cup and then there's glass all over. And why is my day going this way? So that's the difference. We're not necessarily changing the amount of things that we're doing. We're changing who we be as we do them. So we still get to check off all the boxes if we need to. We still get to high achieve. We still get to be reliable and productive if that's, something that someone wants to continue to hold on to as their identity. But you're doing it in a completely different way. And actually, like what I've noticed personally in a lot of the women that I work with, you get more done. And ironically, what you find is you have more space and time than you ever recognized before because when you had it, you filled it with something else. So it's it's a pretty beautiful and again simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's simple. And when you know the roadmap to follow, the reprogramming of the nervous system is actually quite it happens quite quickly because the nervous system is malleable. It learns through consistency and frequency, and so that's what we do.
Yeah, and I think also, it's your perception of time actually changes too. I find that clients tell me that a lot where they're like, "Oh my god, I thought I didn't have time to go out for sunrise or whatever, and I realized I came back and I realized I have a whole extra hour." So by, doing all those tools and all of these other tools, we're actually creating more time, like in this
You're creating
weird.
you're creating time, and what I've noticed too is that you start to be drawn really strongly to the things that are good for you. So, like, I do a sunshine walk, expanded gaze walk multiple times throughout the day, and it takes me 2 minutes, right? And those are times that I would spend doom scrolling or, like, catching up on one last email. I'm probably out for a sunshine walk 10 times a day. But I crave it because I know how good I feel after it, and so I'm gonna prioritize that, and so that's what starts to happen too. It's like whereas a lot of women, I think, push through the day and then hope to get to what makes them feel good. Like, we're putting it pretty close to the top while still having the ability to take care of everything and everyone else, and when we do this, I mean, it's so cliche, but it's so true, like, we're serving from a much higher level. Our cup is way fuller.
Yeah, yeah. As we wrap up, I have one super quick question before you can share maybe what's coming up and how people can interact with you. What you mentioned a group that you have starting soon. And that's that. Do you think that in your journey, in relation to all of these things that you've learned in your book, how you practice, your exposure to light, do you think that's changed how you address emergency situations or how you view life and death?
Uh, yeah. Okay. Definitely how I address emergency situations. And I have to say, I always want to come from a very real place. I am still doing this work. I am a cycle breaker. And just like many of us here, like our parents did better than their parents. And I think we get to take what we learned and adapt and add on to it. And that's such a beautiful generational thing. And so, this is my favorite work to teach, and this is my calling because this is the work that I needed and I still need. And so, in emergency situations, my default reaction is still to go full blown, full blown beta. But what this work teaches you is how to create the pause because in the pause, we create the space. That's our power. We make a choice and we create a new path. And it takes seconds and you can do it anytime. And so emergency situations feel less emergency like when we're regulated. And we have so much more clarity when we're regulated and we can actually help when we're regulated. And so, yeah, it's definitely changed that, which comes in really handy when you've got 3 kids. And then has it changed how I view life and death? Yeah, can you ask that in another way though? Because I've always been infatuated with life and death since I've been a little girl. So ask me
Yeah.
more
For
specifically.
example, when people think death or life and death situation is in like, the birth of a child, there's often this urge to go to someone else for the ultimate last word instead of seeking within ourselves for the answer. So, do you find this work has brought you more inward when it comes to the last authority versus outward?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. In almost any situation where I feel lost or out of control, that is my first default now. And that is what happens when we get reconnected to ourselves. We have the best guru, guide, and mentor inside of us. We always have. We always will. You think about like your favorite friends or the best therapists or the best, people that you've ever come in contact with. And a lot of times they're the best listener and they just help you get back to your own answer because we always have it. We've just forgotten how to listen. But so for me through this work, my default, if I'm overwhelmed, is like, what do I need? And I wait for the answer and it comes fast and it comes loud and I trust it. And so I take a step towards that, whatever that is. I call it the magic red carpet. Like all we got to do is take that first step. You don't have to figure out the rest. The rest will roll out for you. It's angel breadcrumbs, it's synchronicities. It's, when you're living in alignment, that is just what happens. Our reticular activating system, our filter changes. And so we see things that we never saw before. But that starts here. And that can feel like some heavy work, but it doesn't have to. And it's very simple. But what is really important is to do it in connection and community. We had kind of talked about this on the masterclass, right? Because you are repatterning, you are cycle breaking. And so that can feel unfamiliar, unknown, and it feels safer in those situations to pull back into what we've always done. We will stay in a familiar hell instead of a heaven every time because to our nervous system, it feels safer. And so to be able to do this in community with other people and say things like, "Oh my gosh, I'm about to do it differently tonight. Like I've got the family dinner or I've got the social situation, whatever it is, I'm going to do it differently, but like I need you guys. I need you guys on the other side to either celebrate or remind me when I feel like I'm going to throw up like that this is the work and that it's worth it." So, especially for women, having connection and community helps us remember how powerful that inner voice is and how accurate it is in getting us back to the life that we're here to live.
Yeah. I love that. So maybe tell us what's happening that people need to get to know other than getting the book because it's so easy to read. Oh, mine is all busted because I've taken it with me
Oh, good.
everywhere. I even using a chocolate bar as a bookmark, just saying.
Yes. Yes. I want it busted. I want it dog eared. Like you've got a bunch of books behind you. I have a wall of books in I call it my sanctuary, my room. And I want my kids to have that. I want them to see what pages did I dog ear, what passages did I underline. So I hope that when people get my book, it's like shredded and highlighted and ripped up and loved up. That would make me so happy. Yeah. So what do I have coming up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's drop a free resource. I created a checklist, and these are some of my easiest ways to get into theta and alpha during the day. And I think I've got 3 of them on there. So people can grab that checklist below. And then we'll do a link to my newsletter where every Tuesday I put out 2-minute Tuesdays. And that's like 2-minute tools for regulating your nervous system. I think we were doing them every other, and people like them. So we're doing them every week, something like that. And on there, I will keep everyone updated. I've been doing one-on-one high-level coaching, and it's sold out, and we're on a wait list. And so I'm building out a group container, and that will probably be opening like in a month. And so there will be a free aspect of this community where people can just come, hang out, chat, learn some tools. I'll share some teachings on there. I'll share a lot of, you know, concepts taught in the book in a little bit more of a deep dive. And then there will be a group coaching container. We'll do once a week group call, and I'll help walk you through anything going on personally in your life, and we'll connect together as a community in there. So that will be announced in the newsletter as soon as it's open for enrollment.
Okay, awesome. And like you alluded to before, I went to the master class that you held and I it was awesome. Great insights because the book is going to give you all this core information. It's got wonderful exercises, but we all know that people need that extra step to make sure that they are actually implementing it and using it and making it worth everything that it's worth.
Yes, and we're going to do it again. So actually, when people grab the book, which we can put a link for that as well, they get a free ticket to the one that I'm going to do in May. I believe it's Thursday, May 28th at noon Eastern. And we're calling it the
Okay.
Connection Code Book Club. So we'll gather, I'll kind of take some concepts in there, some things that come up a lot when people reach out to me with questions or in my coaching sessions, and we'll deep dive them. And then we always open it up for Q&A. And yeah, we had a lot of fun last time. So we'll be probably doing those once a month or every other month through the summer.
Okay. Very nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everything that you shared on the podcast, and thank you
You're
for your
welcome.
time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. See you guys soon.
Yeah. We'll see you.